The Buffalo Sabres continue to lock up their young core, announcing another huge extension, this time for defenseman Owen Power. We'll discuss the contract coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some news that came out late last night regarding the Buffalo Sabres signing a huge extension with another one of their core young pieces. This is for former first overall pick, defenseman Owen Power. Now, of course, there was speculation and rumors that the Buffalo Sabres were hoping to be able to announce the recent extension for Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power simultaneously, do one big announcement altogether, but unfortunately it didn't work out that way. The Dahlin extension was done and in place, and Power still had some work to be done. So unfortunately it worked out to be separate things here. And last night during the NHL action, I believe it was probably right around most games, the early games in the second intermission, we found out about the Owen Power contract extension. So he signs a 7-year contract extension with an average annual value of $8.35 million. Now, they just signed Rasmus Dahlin to an 8-year extension at $11 million per year, so $88 million total. That is two massive extensions for their top two young defensemen. Both of them first overall picks, of course, a few years apart. Owen Power was first overall here in 2021. Of course, Dahlin was first overall in 2018. I think at this point, the Sabres might be regretting doing that last bridge extension with Dahlin going to a $6 million contract for 3 years. He really elevated his game, and now they're paying a lot more through the nose for him for that next part. But, you know, is Dahlin worth $11 million? Well, you could certainly make an argument that he's certainly within the top, 5, 6, 7 defensemen in the NHL. You look around some of those other top guys that are making, $10, $11 million. Is he deserve it as much as they do? You could probably make an argument that he does. Like I said, I think it's just unfortunate that in Dahlin's case that they didn't get him locked up to a long-term deal sooner, that they went the bridge route instead. They could have been able to save themselves some money, but from the player's perspective, that's great for him and certainly well-deserved. The Power extension, however, I think might be a little bit too much. I think in a few years' time, maybe this will look a little bit better. I'm not doubting that Owen Power is going to be a huge part of the team. I'm not doubting the fact that he's a really good young defenseman. But when you see I just seen the recent extension from the Senators before the season started during training camp there, Jake Sanderson. He did an 8.05 average annual value extension for 8 years. And it just seemed like a lot of people were up in arms over that. I know Sens fans for the most part appreciated it, but a lot of other fan bases thought it was a little bit much, a little crazy. I think, well, if you compare Sanderson and Power, there's very little differences in their game as far as what they've accomplished so far. And Power gets even more money, even higher average annual value, less money because it's a year shorter. So in all honesty here, Owen Power's played 87 games, put up 38 points. He's a left shot defenseman, 6'6", 214 pounds. Pretty well rounded. Never going to be, I don't think, a huge offensive guy, but will be pretty adequate for sure. Sanderson, 6'3", 195, left shot defenseman. Just a year older. And obviously Sanderson went the route of college hockey just like Power did. He's played in 78 games so far and put up 32 points. So he's played in, 9 games less, so only has a few less points. So their offensive output, for example, pretty comparable. Sanderson is one of the best skaters in the league already. I don't think you can really say that one is really better than the other defensively. So really, at the end of the day here, I think the main reason the average annual value on Power is a little higher is because he took a shorter term. It's just for the crowd out there who was hating on the Sanderson contract, you can't hate the Sanderson contract and not hate this one, in my opinion. These two players are extremely comparable. So if you don't like one, to me, you shouldn't like the other either. So for the most part, like I said about Sanderson, I thought it was a good deal. I mean, it's about $300,000 difference on the cap hit, which can make a difference. As we can see, a lot of teams like the Sens right now are tight up against it, trying to get all their full roster on the ice. Will Power be worth it? Will Sanderson be worth it? I think they both will be. They're both stud young defensemen. I just think that where Sanderson's average annual value is just a little bit less, I think it's going to be a situation where even by the end of this year, people are going to be saying, "Yep, okay, I can see that." Whereas Power, maybe it might take just a little bit longer because it's a little bit bigger of a cap hit. But within a year or two, like we're looking at the last 5 to 6 years of both of these contracts, they're going to be a good chance, at least if they continue to project the way they do, that they could be valued as underpaid. So in that sense, they both got a huge bag of money here, and it will both be fixtures on their team's blue line and rivals in their Atlantic Division for some time. Of course, in Buffalo, they've made it a priority to get a lot of their young stars locked up, just like the Ottawa Senators have. They both have a very similar strategy. The only difference, like I said, was Dahlin get the bridge. But in Ottawa, you look at all their other young guys, for the most part, are getting the long-term deal right out of their rookie contract. They did that for Timmy Stützle, did that for Brady Tkachuk, Josh Norris, of course, Shabbat, Sanderson. Batherson his was a little less, it was 6 years, but still, and his is even better value. But now the Sabres have Power locked up at 8.35 for 7 years. That kicks in next year. Dahlin, that kicks in next year. $11 million for 8 years. Matthias Samuelsson signed a 7-year contract at $4.2 million. Tage Thompson, $7.1 million, has 7 years on that, and Cousins 7 times 7. At the end of the day, the Thompson and Cousins contracts could be extremely team friendly. Just over $7 million or $14 million between the two. That could be extremely good in that sense when it comes to value. The defense ones, though, like Dahlin, Dahlin, Power, and Samuelsson, that is a lot. And to me, I didn't mind the Samuelsson contract in the beginning. And it's not so much that he's not worth it. It's just when you have your number one guy getting $11 million, now you've got your number two guy at $8.35. It just means that everybody else has to take a little bit less. Now, right now, they're not in a bind salary cap-wise, but they do have some other young pieces that they're going to want to be looking for raises in the next year or two, and it's just we'll see how they manage the cap. Thankfully, they're going to, like Ottawa too, they're going to be in a situation where the cap's going to rise, whereas you've seen other teams that were, a few years ahead of this curve, like the Leafs, who ended up with a flat cap that they wouldn't have predicted, which has caused a lot of their headaches and made their contracts look worse than what they might be. Not so much that the players don't deserve it, it's just that there's so much money tied up in a small group. And so the Sabres have obviously $38 million, they're just shy of, on 5 players. You look at the Ottawa Senators, similar numbers. You get 3 forwards, and your top 3 forwards with Tkachuk, Stützle, and Norris, and Batherson would be the 4th, just right around $32 million. And then you've got Shabbat and Sanderson when that kicks in next year. So, from that perspective, the Sens will have slightly more than the Sabres will. So at the same time, this is a pretty good contract overall. It's just going to take a little bit of time to grow into. So for right now, Buffalo and Ottawa, 2 emerging teams taking similar strategies, getting their young guys locked up. For the most part, there's obviously always risk associated with these long-term deals in a small body of work, but so far all these players, for the most part, seem like they're very much worth the risk. So let me know your thoughts on the Owen Power extension, the strategy here for teams like Buffalo and Ottawa, getting these guys locked up so young, committing so much money, well ahead of their body of work being much bigger. So let me know on that. We'll talk about it further in the comments. We'll be back later with another news video to recap everything else from around the NHL. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.